Picture this. You've just spent years of your life bleeding into a PhD thesis. Years of sleepless nights, financial ruin, and institutional betrayal. The university took your funding, stole your workspace, and somehow lost $10,000 of your money because of their mistake. And now they have the audacity to make it mandatory that you thank them. Mandatory. Gratitude. To the people who broke you. Most people would grit their teeth, write 2 polite sentences, and move on. I am not most people. If you've ever been wronged by an institution, a school, a workplace, a system, that smiled at you while quietly destroying your future, then this story is going to feel deeply personal. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and settle in. Because what this PhD student did with 3 pages of academic gratitude is one of the coldest, most elegant pieces of revenge I have ever come across. The cursor blinked. She sat in front of her laptop, the glow of the screen cutting through the exhaustion on her face, scrolling through the university's thesis submission checklist. The main text was done, finally mercifully done, approved by both of her supervisors. Years of work distilled into chapters, refined, argued over, rewritten. It was finished. But the checklist had one final item. Acknowledgements section mandatory. She stared at the word. Mandatory. The university had even gone out of its way to frame it with particular pompousness. All students were required to acknowledge and thank every person and institution that had contributed to the success of the thesis. She leaned back in her chair, and for a long moment she didn't type a single word. Because to understand what happened next, you need to understand what those years had actually looked like. It had started so promisingly. She'd earned a competitive scholarship, not handed to her, earned. She performed well academically, built a strong reputation as a teaching assistant, and felt for the first time in a long time like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Then her supervisor retired. Suddenly, without warning, due to circumstances neither of them had control over. And that's when the institution that had welcomed her with open arms quietly began to let her fall. Research funding dried up. The kind of slow, bureaucratic abandonment that doesn't happen all at once. It happens in emails that go unanswered, in budget meetings where your name isn't mentioned, in the gradual realization that no one is actually looking out for you. Then came the money. $10,000, $10,000 gone. Not because of anything she did. Because the administrative staff made errors in an equipment purchase process. Her money, her research funds. And when the dust settled, the university simply absorbed the loss and left her holding an empty account. If that wasn't enough, they took her workspace. Not a lab, not an office with her name on the door. A desk, a single desk that she used for research, and they took even that away. No explanation that fixed anything. No alternative offered. Just figure it out. And so she did. She finished her entire PhD research independently. No institutional support. No department funding. She sourced her own materials, covered her own costs, and funded the final stretch of her doctorate from money she earned herself, through an escorting career that, she'll be the first to tell you, was actually quite successful. But that, she says with a quiet sort of dignity, is another story entirely. The point is, she finished. Against every obstacle the institution either created or simply refused to remove. She crossed the finish line on her own terms, with her own money, through her own sheer stubbornness. And now they wanted her gratitude. She looked at the acknowledgements requirement again. Most PhD students she knew wrote 1 to 2 pages. A warm paragraph for the supervisors. A mention of family. Maybe a nod to a funding body or a colleague who helped with data. Polite. Professional. Forgettable. Her jaw tightened. They want gratitude? Fine. But if she was going to do this, if she was going to sit here and perform appreciation for an institution that had systematically failed her, then she was going to do it on her own terms. She was going to write the most thorough, most extensive, most effusively detailed acknowledgement section that department had ever seen. And at the very end of it, buried under 3 pages of genuine, heartfelt warmth for the people who actually had supported her, she was going to say exactly what she thought about the university. In the driest, most academic language imaginable. Permanently. She started writing and she dialed it up. Page 1. Her supervisors, she wrote about them with real affection, detailing specific moments, specific lessons, the particular ways their guidance had shaped not just her thesis but her thinking. Anyone who read it would know these weren't generic platitudes. They were earned. Her family, She painted them with warmth and specificity. The phone calls, the sacrifices, the quiet belief they maintained even when she had lost her own. Her patrons, the people who had financially supported her when the university would not. She named what they gave her not just in money but in trust, in dignity. The student counselor who had listened without judgment during the darkest stretches. She thanked them by name, by gesture, by the specific words they had said that had kept her going. She even thanked the flight school she attended. A detail so specific, so genuinely her own, that it made the whole section feel undeniably real. These were not the words of someone performing gratitude. These were the words of someone who knew bone deep the difference between people who had shown up for her and the institution that had not. By the time she reached page 3, she had built something remarkable. A monument of genuine appreciation, warm, detailed, human, that would stand in sharp relief against what came next. The final paragraph. It was short, deliberately, surgically short. While everything above it breathed with feeling and texture, this paragraph was stripped bare. Academic. Detached. The kind of writing that says more through what it doesn't say than what it does. She thanked the university for the wake-up call it had provided for her development into an alternative career path, for the experience of fostering autonomy, a delicate, devastating phrase for being abandoned and forced to figure everything out alone, for teaching her to manage her own maintenance works and source her own funding. No anger, no accusation, no exclamation marks, just the facts, dressed in the language of gratitude. She read it back once, twice. A slow smile spread across her face. Perfect. The thesis passed final validation. And here is the part that makes this revenge permanent. By university policy, every approved PhD thesis is made publicly available. Forever. In the physical library. In the online repository. Indexed, searchable, accessible to anyone in the world with an internet connection. Those 3 pages, every word of genuine warmth for the people who helped her, every carefully chosen syllable of dry, withering acknowledgement for the institution that failed her, are now part of the academic record. They cannot be edited. They cannot be removed. They will sit in that repository long after the administrators who failed her have retired, long after the department has shuffled through a dozen new staff members, and every junior PhD student who searches that database looking for a reference on how to write their acknowledgement section. And students absolutely do this, trust me, will find her thesis. They will read 3 pages that teach them something the university never intended to teach, that you can tell the truth with perfect composure and make it last forever. The university asked for gratitude. She gave it, precisely calibrated, publicly displayed, and permanently archived. She thanked them exactly as much as they deserved. No more. There's a certain kind of justice that doesn't need a courtroom or a viral post or a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes the most devastating thing you can do to someone who wronged you is simply document it. Accurately. Calmly. For all time. She didn't rage. She wrote. And in doing so, she made sure that her version of the story would outlive all of theirs. If this story gave you chills or honestly, a deep and very specific satisfaction, smash that like button and drop a comment below. What is the most composed, calculated, or quietly devastating act of justice you've ever witnessed? The more understated, the better. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Stories like this one are why this channel exists. Hit that subscribe button and we'll see you in the next one.